Oh my God, I'm so excited. Joe Handy. Whew. How are you
Hello,
doing?
Tracy. How are you?
I am great. So Joe, your video, that video that you sparked, this concept of living beyond the hashtag and being unapologetically Black, that video has sparked like a craze. It's gone viral. People are loving it. So I wanted you to just go a little bit deeper. When you use the terminology around living beyond the hashtag, if you were talking to one of our corporate sponsors, what would you tell them that actually means?
I would ask them what that means. I would say, what does it mean for you to live beyond a hashtag that you put up on your website or you get the culture of your company around? What does it mean to you to support Black businesses, to support diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what does it mean to you to go through this sort of reckoning that's been happening in our country? So if it means something to you, let's talk about that as a baseline. And then let's talk about what that means as far as actionable items, because the action can't just be putting a hashtag on your website, getting your company and the support around your company around this hashtag. It has to be more meaningful activities that's sustainable. It can't just be a catchphrase. And that's what I mean by living beyond a hashtag. The hashtags are simply something that breaks through the noise and resonates with people, but it has to be more than that. It has to be actionable items that actually show something that changes. It's beyond, it's more.
I love it. I love it. And Joe, what I love about you is you've shown up. You're relatively new in the organization and you're showing up trying to make some waves. You're like, hey, things cannot be the same. I'm not going to leave them the same.
No.
Right?
The status quo is a recipe for failure. If you continue to keep things the way they are, you never grow, you never develop. And we are at a point where we need to grow, we need to blossom, we need to develop. We need to see some change.
And we are. And what I also love about you is, during the video, we heard, I think it was Leslie, she mentioned this term, a culture of care. And she talked about how the National Black MBA really is about creating a safe space for our members. We're also about creating a safe space and an environment, a loving environment of change for our sponsors, like for our students. Like this is the work that we were meant to do. And I'm doing this work as president of the Seattle chapter, but I'm also doing it because this is my thing. This is my jam, right? This is like where I know we have the answers. We have the answers, and I know it's bigger than me. Right? This is why this is called the bigger than me success series. It takes someone like you to make a declaration that this is bigger than us. So would you talk to someone along the lines of this concept of a culture of care? I've done thousands of interviews with our people, leaders and professionals. So if you think about people who've been in this journey for decades, who might be less than optimistic than I am, who might be less excited that now is our time for change, what would you say to give people hope as it relates to this culture of care? And we do have therapists that are going to be part of the conversations, but what would you say to people to give them hope that now is the time for them to lean back in, right? And for us to create this culture of care in this community where we can all move through the next level together.
Yeah, so how I would respond to that is we need to be supportive of our community, and we need to be supportive of those that we work with, because we have experienced, in many cases, the burden of being the only. We have experienced the burden of having to represent our entire culture. So we want to make sure that we come into our workspace and we approach our Black coworkers with that same level of grace and that same level of care, appreciating the fact that they have gotten here, and they've gotten here dealing with, in many cases, the same challenges that we've had to deal with. And there should be this sort of support network and this caring and grace that exists. So it's not a matter of leaving someone off on their own to do something. It's a matter of saying, how can I be helpful? How can I be caring? How can I lean in and be supportive to help uplift our community? Because we can't just continue to be the only. And we understand that in many cases, unfortunately, until things change, we shoulder the burden of representing our entire community. So how we show up represents who will be able to show up behind us. So being able to care for one another and being able to understand that it is bigger than us is indicative of what has happened in our community. And you may have heard me say this before, but I also want us to remember that in many cases, when we see Black executives or Black folks in positions of power, it is the turtle on a fence. We see them there and we know they didn't get there on their own. So we have to continue to reach forward and be ambitious in our careers. We should also reach back to pull people up with us, because we are representing what will be generations to come as far as acceptance, as far as understanding the value that we bring to our businesses, our companies, our work, our careers, because that is going to allow for folks that look like us to be able to have a smoother path to come in behind us. So it's a matter of caring for those that are on our peer level and that we work with, but also recognizing that we need to be able to be grounded in our skills in order to allow for folks that are coming behind us to be able to have a smoother path and folks to look at us as a representative of what is to come.
I love it. Yes, yes, and yes. Now, the last couple questions I want to ask, because I know you're going somewhere. You got flights, you're flying around the country, you got a lot of things going on. So thank you for taking the time today, and thank you for committing to be a part of this initiative as we move forward, right? So, I mean, what does it mean to you for people to know that you decided, this isn't, I'm not even giving a hashtag. Like, I am showing up. And what I loved about you, Joe, we talked about this level of accountability. You're like, basically, I'm watching you. Companies, yes, we're here for you, but we're also watching you. Let's talk about this term, accountability. What can they expect? I mean, like I said, I'm showing up every month. I've committed to doing these series once a month. We're going to bring people on that are doing great work, going to get you an opportunity to celebrate them, but also to celebrate, but also to hold people accountable when they're not doing what they said. Let's talk about what that accountability means and why that accountability from the top, from Joe Handy saying, look, now is the time.
It's important. It is so important. We have to not only be bold and speak up for our community, but we have to ensure that we're actually doing what we say we're going to do. And there's a level of accountability there. There's almost has to be some sort of accountability officer or accountability support, I should say, because I don't want to police people. I do want people to understand that you have to be held accountable for the actions that you take, as well as the statements that you make. But we're here to be supportive. You don't have to be out there on your own, but you have to have that self-audit to say, if this is where I want to be, if this is what I want to do, and if this is what I'm committing to do, then we need to make sure that you're actually doing that. And you don't have to do it alone. We're not asking for someone to have all the answers, but be willing to accept some of the answers and be willing to actually do what you say you want to do.
I love it. Joe, let me tell you what I like to say with this work, this Bigger Than Me success series. What I say to people, I'm doing consulting as well. What I say to people is being in, that is the win. Deciding that you want to be a part of a community that's moving forward, that has an aspiration of truly creating an inclusive culture where everyone can thrive. Being in is the win. It doesn't matter where you are, right? If you've committed to move on that journey, that's the win.
Right. And there doesn't have to be a distinction between doing well as a company, doing well as an individual, and also doing good. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can do well and do good at the same time. So there shouldn't be a fear that if you don't do what you say you're going to do, that it's going to have a negative implication. You can do well and do good.
I love it. Joe, I got two last points to talk to you about. Now, we decided to call this kickoff session in this next phase of the series, Unapologetically Black, Fostering Inclusion and Living Beyond a Hashtag. Now, we talked about living beyond a hashtag. Right. What do you think when you hear the term that Donald Comer, our current board chairman, likes to use? He says this every time I see him, we are unapologetically Black. What do you think about when you hear that?
That's grounding. It's grounding. It's foundational. The purpose of this organization that was established 51 years ago was to support the Black community. And that is where we've been built on. That was our foundation. And that's where we are 51 years later. We're still focusing on the Black community. So we are unapologetically Black because we are focused on our Black community. We're focusing on uplifting. We're focusing on our Black businesses. We're focusing on our Black entrepreneurs. We're focusing on our Black staff, our Black members. We are unapologetically Black.
I love it. I love it. No, I have to ask you a side question on that. When white corporate sponsors hear that term, what do you say to them? Is there something you need to do to help them feel comfortable with that language?
Absolutely. So in many cases, you have those circumstances where people say, well, you're focusing on the Black community, I don't see color. And that is probably one of the things that that I use as a learning or teachable moment, because by saying I don't see color negates who I am as an individual. Saying that I don't see color negates everything that my color brings to the table and all the skills that come and all the learning that I had to go through to be where I am. So saying that I don't see color is almost diminishing of the fact that of the journey that I had to go through. So when I talk to companies, I say, I need you to see color. I need you to see everything that we had to go through to get to where we are, because there is a story and a narrative in that of itself that shows the tenacity, the strength of the community that we were able to get here in spite of all of the obstacles that are put in the way of Black individuals as they aspire. So I need you to embrace all of that. I need you to see all of that. I need you to see every obstacle that we had to go through and overcome to get to where we are, because that will help you appreciate what I am bringing to the table. Because it's not just the intellectual, it's not just the learned skills, it is those soft skills that we had to acquire to navigate this world. And those are the skills that are a necessity for businesses to advance and grow. And those are things that we had to do intuitively. Those are things that we had to do just to survive, to get here. So I need you to see that. I need you to see me in my Blackness. And I'm not apologizing for who I am or what I am, because that is part of why I am here today.
Woo! I love me some Joe Handy. Joe.
Thank you, Traci.
Joe. Okay, last question, because I know you gotta go. I'm just gonna have to put it out there. Now, Sinek talks about, starting with why. My why is pretty simple, right? It's about the youth. It's about making sure that we're changing things immediately, because we do have things that can change immediately. When you have an inclusion experience, your perspective changes, you're changed as a person, right? We do have solutions for this work, but we're also doing it for our youth. We want to make sure that the next generation is not having the same experiences that our organization was founded on 52 years ago. So can you tell me a little bit about the youth, why this is so important for the youth? And what would you say to young people today who are like, I ain't trying to go into corporate America, right? Because I know what it's like. I've seen my parents, right, have the struggle. What would you say to young people, and why is that such an important driver?
That's a very interesting question, Traci. And the reason I say that is we forget how the youth help shape who we are in our present. We forget that the youth is what is driving change within our country. So I would say we have to continue to be supportive of the youth, appreciate the perspective that they've given, and learn from them, because their tolerance is a lot less than ours. Even if you looked at the protest that took place this past year, you look at who was driving that change and who was demanding change, it was the youth. Even if we were to go back, if you look at Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or some of the other sort of folks that have been intimately involved in advancing our community, they were in their 20s. So as far as what we talk to the youth and how we talk to the youth, as we start to grow within our careers, we have to look back. We can lean forward and advance and pull our way up, but we also should be supportive and turn around and pulling back those that are behind us. And those that are behind us is the youth. So if we can't be out there, or we look at the way that we are sort of fighting for change, we also have to be supportive of the youth, because they are the front line. And what they are experiencing is yet to be manifested. So in a sense of what they are impacting from a change standpoint, they will soon appreciate. So what we have to do, the older folks, is be supportive of the youth, because they are the ones that are bold and are driving change. It was bold and ambitious young individuals 51 years ago that started this organization. And sometimes we forget that narrative. Sometimes we get sort of too big for bigger than what we think we are, and we forget that the change is being driven by the youth.
I love it. Final question is really a call to action, Joe. This is called the Bigger Than Me Success Series. It's about us coming together collectively. So what would you say to leaders and organizations, but also Black professionals, Black leaders, corporate sponsors? What would you say to people about leaning in and truly being a part of the change that they want to see?
I would say this is the time. This is the time for us to double down on our community. This is the time for us to impact change. There hasn't been, at least in my lifetime, the spotlight that exists on the Black community that exists on the Black community now. We have to give grace to our community, but we also have to be very focused on advancing and using this opportunity to educate and get involved. You can get involved with the National Black MBA Association because you see what we've done as far as the breadth of our work, but there are also other organizations that you can get involved in as well. You can take your passion into your own company or to your own community and get involved. I'm not telling you where to put that passion. I'm just saying, take that passion and do something with it.
I love it. Joe Handy, you know you're one of my favorites, right?
Traci, thank you so much.
Joe, this is great. This is, we always say it's bigger than me, but together it's not bigger than us. We got this.
Absolutely.
Thank
you,
you,
Traci.
Bye.